Living green or sustainably is about more than saving on your electric bill and doing your part to protect natural resources. It is about a safer and healthier life for you and your family without sacrificing style, quality, or budget. This is a movement to provide all of us with clean air to breathe and water to drink, safe, healthy food to eat, and places to live, and energy to run the places where we live, learn, play, and work. The Everyday Green Home Podcast helps you get the value of green for you, your family, and your community. Whether it's green homes, green living, or the people who make it happen, join me, Marla Esser Close, to learn how green and sustainability practices and products work for you and our world. Well, good day, everybody. It's a beautiful sunny day. And you know, my next door neighbor just moved in because houses are still moving like crazy and buildings still moving like crazy, but supply chains are still nuts. And so my dad's in the middle of a remodel, a forced remodel due to a flood. And it's been, let's see, August 1st. Today's what? October 20 something.
23rd.
And as they're remodeling, so it's been, let's see, September, October, almost 3 months. And everything's taking forever. And they're living in a hotel. So this whole idea of remodeling, is still, part of the whole craziness with homes and home building. But when we remodel, we have amazing opportunity to do amazing stuff and make our homes even better. So, Tony, here we are this morning to talk about remodeling and building, but we're going to segue a minute, aren't we?
I would think so. It's a bright, sunny Saturday here in the Midwest, and I see you have a bright and cheery shirt on.
For those of you watching this as opposed to listening it, you're getting to see it.
What does that say? Build my future.
Right.
It's almost like a fuchsia.
Yeah.
Build my future, OKC. So why don't you tell everybody about Build My Future?
So those of you that can see, here's Build My Future. And Build My Future is a one-day hands-on construction event that I helped bring to Oklahoma City in 2019, fashioned after an event that started in Springfield, Missouri, back in our other kind of in between our stomping grounds. And this ties into remodeling and homes because we need people to do all this work. And Build My Future is think of it as an interactive job fair, if you will, to show high school students and give them a chance to put their hands on some of the different ways and things that we do in the construction industry and the skilled trades. And we're hosting this event. I'll timestamp this one since there's actually a date, October 26th, 2021. We're going to be probably the largest masked event in the state of Oklahoma. A lot of it's outdoors too, so that's very helpful. But I will stick a link to this in the show notes, but it's buildmyfutureokc.com. And I am super, super honored and jazzed to be a part of this. It is a lot of work, but oh my gosh, so exhilarating. And to see these kids come in, and I think my favorite statement 2 years ago when we did our last live one was a young lady that said, I had no idea there were so many things in building. I always just thought of swinging a hammer. And that's what we found with so many of these students. There's so many different ways to be a part of our industry. You and I have really different roles, and we're both part of the same industry.
Oh, absolutely. And we're like opposite the ends of the earth when it comes to what we do in the construction field. And events like this are so important today because, as I know we've been talking about it in multiple episodes, but we are just suffering. We've been 4 or 5 years in a labor shortage that we just see getting worse and worse and worse. And, people complain about the cost of homes. Well, guess what?
Part of it.
They will continue to go up, whether it's cost of land, the supply chain issue and shortage and cost of materials, but the biggest part, labor. Can't build that house without people. No matter how hard you try, there's just so much you cannot automate.
Even the prefabs, and there's some really cool stuff that's out on the market right now, but even those still require people power. They require people power on site. They require people power behind the brains to make it all work. And I do see a trend towards finding ways that are more and more efficient. And I had a really interesting conversation. We had an architecture tour here last weekend that we had an opportunity to go visit, I think, 4 buildings. And I had a chance to get into a conversation with the Dean of Architecture at Oklahoma University, a gentleman by the name of Hans Butzer, who's done some iconic architecture. He and his wife, Tori, have done some iconic work here in Oklahoma City. So huge honor to get to meet him. But we had this conversation about why has the commercial environment done such a better job of adopting healthier, greener, more sustainable principles in building, and homes have had a much harder time with this. And as I was thinking about this, because believe it or not, I've actually thought a few things this past week, it's the nature of home building is based on repeatability.
Yes.
And the nature of commercial building is a clean slate.
It's one and done. Yeah, everything is re-engineered in commercial, whereas for home building, you have a set of plans. And the goal is you have to be able to build those as efficiently as possible. It's the same plan, you'll have some tweaks.
And even if you want to change it up, which some do, it's a much different business model. And I hope that we have an opportunity to continue this conversation to figure out some ways to bridge, because there's tremendous opportunity in the home industry to take advantage of some of these lessons learned and some of these tools. But it's almost like having a business coach. Oh, wait, I am a green coach.
Are you plugging your own business?
Even though I'm in pink. But this is exactly why people like me are around, is to help people bridge that gap. And that was totally not intended to be a plug for me, but thank you, the universe. Universe, whatever. But this also becomes such a key point when we're remodeling, because when you move to a remodel situation, you've now taken a product that was likely built in some kind of repeatable fashion, and now you're tailoring it.
Well, and I'm going to tie in everything for you here, because yes, it'd be nice to have some kind of bridge. As we all know, production builders and subdivision builders, they're built on, I've got to build these houses as efficiently as possible to make my money back.
Right.
And that's a totally different model and a totally different experience and a totally different builder than the $4 million true custom that this thing's going to take 2 to 3 years to build. But I'm going to get exactly what I want. And it's almost like the commercial experience. It's a clean slate. Whatever you want, we can put in. You want the latest and greatest on everything, you get it. But there's also a cost involved. But then you have that third type of business, which to me, I really think is the hardest. But anybody that's ever remodeled a house understands this is truly a labor of love. And that's the remodel side.
Right. Because every time you dig into something, and anybody that watches any of the home remodeling shows on TV sees a tiny glimmer of what happens. I mean, and I have to give them some credit that they always put a problem or a challenge that they encounter in there. And they do talk about how it happens. So I do appreciate them setting that precedent, because every time you want to remodel, even redecorate, you've got to plan in for things that you don't see.
Well, that's just it.
Or don't know about, because you're going to find them.
You're walking into a situation where your best guess will lead you to what needs to be done. But until you open up those walls, you just have no clue. You have no idea what you're going to run into. It could look like the best house in the world, but then you strip it down and it's just a mess. Or vice versa. Some of those houses that Patty Mahar in St. Louis used to remodel.
The old historic homes.
Those old historic homes, but from the outside, they look like they should have been condemned and ripped down, right? They were awful. Some of them were drug houses.
But most of her work was gut rehab. I mean, she usually went down to the brick.
Right. It was gut rehab, but they had great bones.
They did have great bones.
So once they pulled off everything, they saw, I can work with this. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she turned those just absolute trash into jewels. They are incredible.
She saved a lot of buildings. Yeah, she is missed. For those of you that we're talking about, a woman in St. Louis who ran a business called Tiger Lily, and she has since passed. But she was someone that we both knew years ago, and she did some incredible work in St. Louis with a lot of 100-plus-year-old brick buildings down in town that she helped to save. She was a treasure herself.
Yeah, she had a niche. She really did.
This is a really good place to start, because when you think about remodeling, I want to kind of break it into 3 areas if we can. And so the building envelope is where you can start. And it really depends on what your project is, right? And this is exactly what Patty was excelled at, was starting with the building envelope. So we're going to start there, and we're going to talk about remodeling decisions and upgrade decisions you can make on the building envelope. So y'all remember, this is what protects the inside from the outside. So that's our building envelope: the walls, the windows, the doors, the roof, and the basement or the foundation slab. So we'll start with that. And then I want to work our way into the systems, which is easier to change out, and tremendous opportunity exists here. But it's not inconsequential on the cost, but there's also actually a fair amount of money out there to help, some rebate and incentive programs. And then we'll come into the third level, which is almost the redecorating side, changing out your finishes and your fixtures. A lot of times, like, just you'll see a kitchen or a bath remodel that's a cosmetic remodel. And there's even tremendous opportunity in just a cosmetic remodel or a redecorate. Did I miss anything?
No, I think that's it.
Building envelope. So let's start there. So this is going to be an approach when you are tearing out walls, moving walls, especially exterior ones, which is the biggest thing you can do for a remodel or a rehab. I guess you're really a rehab at that point, aren't you?
Yeah, if you're like, finishing your basement or something, you're not going to have a lot of opportunity on the building envelope. But
correct.
If you are putting on an addition, oh yeah, you're opening up some kind of a wall somewhere. And that's where it starts.
And this is the time to do what? So if you're adding on an addition, let's say you're tearing out the back wall of your house and you're adding an addition on. So what are some of the key things we want to watch for and do?
All right. So as you frame that up, you make sure that you do a sealing package.
Air sealing.
Air sealing. Yep. You want to
SEAL.
You want to make sure that you're caulking all those joints. If you see light, you're on the inside looking out and you see light from the outside, caulk is your best friend. Nice and easy. Simple. It's one of those steps that for a little bit of effort, it can have a large impact. And we're starting to see a lot of production builders doing this as they build new homes.
Well, and there's some high-tech air sealing technologies and materials that are out there now too that work when a house is empty. You don't want finishes and stuff on it.
Yeah, you can't really do some of those when you're remodeling.
No. A gut rehab would be the appropriate time. But
right.
Okay.
Caulk is your best friend.
Seal it up.
So that's the first thing I would do. Nice and easy.
And make sure that you have everything sealed on all 4 sides. So your exterior walls, your base, your floor, your slab, whatever that is, and your ceiling to roof.
You see light, cover it. That's how I look at it.
And especially around windows and doors and other openings. So like if stuff goes through the wall, like you've got an electrical something going through the wall or a plumbing something going through the wall, make sure it's properly done for exterior so it doesn't freeze. And then you want to seal it up. And by the way, if you don't know what kind of sealant to use, ask, because there's different kinds. So you want to use something different for windows and doors than you do for sealing gaps like between drywall.
Mm-hmm. That is correct.
And even your local big box can help advise you on that.
Yeah, because it is basic. These are basic ideas. So to me, that's number one. Number two is, before we get to like windows and all that, let's talk insulation. You want to make sure that you're putting in a better insulation, a higher R value than just your basic.
And a healthier insulation. We're really starting to pay attention to the chemical makeup of these products because we're realizing they off-gas a lot more than we thought they did.
And what you just did, you sealed the house. So whatever's off gassing is staying in the house. That's just reality.
So less stuff to off gas is a really good idea with all of these decisions. Matter of fact, you can even get low VOC. That means it doesn't off gas as much. And there's a certification called Green Guard or Green Guard Gold that says it's been third party independently verified that it doesn't off gas a lot within acceptable limits. So you can even look for caulk, adhesives, insulation that have those ratings.
And if you're having a contractor that's actually managing the project, even if the contractor doesn't know, tell the contractor you want to talk to his subcontractors, because chances are the subcontractors know.
Good idea.
They know exactly what it is, because I don't know how it is with others, but somebody like me will work with 40 or 50 builders and contractors. And while there's a couple that they won't buy into any of what we're talking about, there's some that do. So we have to be knowledgeable in both worlds.
To do it. And, folks, ask, because a lot of times builders and remodelers complain that, oh, nobody asked for green. And I'm like, of course they don't ask for green. They don't know. That's not a nomenclature. It's not a word that comes to mind. What they do want is healthier, more comfortable, more controllable insides of their home. That just happens to be reached through a lot of green and sustainable practices and products like these healthier products that we're talking about that don't off gas as much. So ask, you guys, have the conversation. And I think there's a YouTube video up from that class that I did at Botanical Gardens years ago that was how to talk to your remodeler or builder. So that might be a place to start, is figure out how to have that conversation.
Right. But I would say this, just remember, when it comes to a remodeling project, it's your house.
Yes. And you get to say,
these people are working with you, but also for you. If you want it, they will do it. If they don't want to do it, get a contractor that will.
My dad's been learning this in spades with their house.
Yes, that is my first bit of advice I would give anybody. And you could flush that right out in the process of designing the remodel and picking the contractor.
Okay, so you alluded to windows and doors. So I'm assuming this addition is going to have a window in it and probably a door.
It depends on what it is. If it's a master bedroom, it might not have a door.
True. But if it's a back room, if it's on an exterior side, I'm going to guess that it's going to have light and exit.
Yeah, it could. But I would say this, with windows, once again, it's all about the R value. We want to make sure that what we are putting in there are nice and insulated windows. Same thing with any kind of doors and any kind of openings. You want to make sure you're putting the best insulation rating in that opening.
I've always kind of subscribed to the thought that you should buy the best that your budget can take, because these are elements. You don't want to replace windows. Doors aren't as big of a deal, but windows are, because they're installed original better than they can be when you're doing replacements, just because of the nature of the wall assemblies and the layering that goes on to give you protection from the water and the wind and the elements, and to allow walls to dry out, because windows, by the way, will drain water out. This is kind of a foreign concept to a lot of us, but these window to wall junctions, I'm going to get a little techie here from building science side. They are designed to handle water, not to avoid water. And handling water correctly, handling infiltration correctly is a big part of that, right? So sorry for the techie part, y'all, but this is where it really helps to work with a home pro that really knows her stuff.
And remember, we're talking building science. This is all physics. It's that house, the materials are going to expand and contract over time, over seasons. It's just what they do. This is not anything unique. Every house does.
So up top, if you're having to add or replace roof shingles, here's another opportunity, even if it's just choosing the color of your shingles.
Yes, because you're seeing a lot of people, they get into the white roofs, they get into, more green roofs, reflective versus absorbing. We don't think about it, but those dark roofs, well, what do dark colors do? They absorb light, right? We all go back into the days of the color spectrums and learning all the colors of the visible spectrum, right? What was the joke with white? Oh, that's a reflection of all colors combined. What is black? It's the absorption of colors. So it's the same thing. Heat gets absorbed by darker colors on the roof.
So here in Oklahoma, very popular to build very tall, steep roof lines with many, many parts to it. So 16, 17 planes. So every plane's like a different angle or a different place where the wood meets in.
Mm-hmm. That's that chateau style, isn't it?
It is a French chateau, yeah. And then they put black shingles on them. And so I ask a lot of these builders, I'm like, why do you do that? Well, because that's what our customers want. I'm like, did they really ask for that? Or is it just something that, you know, the Joneses and the Smiths have it, so they think they need it too? Has anybody ever taken the time to explain the trade-offs and how much additional air conditioning they're using to overcome the heat of those shingles? And now here we use a lot of reflective roof decking, which does help some. But y'all, common sense prevails here. If y'all are going to live in a black coated roof or a black coated home, and you're in Florida, Texas, Arizona, even in Oklahoma, oops. Now, it's great if you live in Wisconsin or Maine. So pay attention to your region and think what's regionally appropriate. I think with electricity making so many things so easy, we didn't have to think about the environment, the region, the climate that we were in as much, because we just turned the AC or the heat on. And taking advantage of your natural environment is a way to have a home that works more in concert with all those ideas rather than having to subsist on its own. And it's also better when the power goes out because it works.
No, that's true. It does go out. I can attest to that. But, you know, you make an interesting point, because when it comes to building a home, think about all the decisions we make. It all seems to be about the visual side. How do things look?
You mean my tagline, looks good, performs well?
But we don't think about performance.
Not till we live there. And that's when we discover it.
Right. It's all about the look. That's why you get those high-pitched roofs, that chateau style. Hey, it looks great. Looks incredible. It doesn't perform so well. So once again, if we're talking remodeling, yes, we do want it to look nice. It has to be visually appealing. But since you are the ones that are remodeling your house, yours, you can control and look for things that, yes, they look nice, but they're also going to perform better than maybe what the contractor recommends.
Absolutely true. You probably don't have the time, resources, or know-how to research and shop for better options for you and your world. That's why I've done it for you. The Everyday Green Home Shop is my curated collection of better products for a safer, healthier, more comfortable life in your home. Through simple buying choices, you can change your home easily. My book laid out the how to do it. Now, the Everyday Green Home Shop gives you a place to put those ideas into action with your buying choices. I invite you to look through the online shop and choose an item or two to swap for something you usually buy for your home. Once you make a selection, it will take you to one of my trusted affiliate sites or the Amazon site you already use. Super easy. Products on Everyday Green Home range from indoor-outdoor rugs made from recycled plastic to my husband's favorite reusable silicone straw that fits in his pocket. I look for third-party independent green labels or go through a trusted third-party verification process to validate the products I curate for you. Go to everydaygreenhome.com for what you need to create a stylish, safer, and healthier home easily. And these are things that if you're buying a home, an existing home, you can look for, A, if these things are done, and B, if they're not, look for the opportunity to make it better. And using something like a renovation loan when you're buying a home, which is what I wish we had done, but we just didn't have the time. But a renovation loan just wraps all your renovation expenses into your loan so you can get it done and then it's ready to go when you move in. So I don't know how well that'll work right now with the time crunches we have, but you know, in the olden days, 2, 5, 6 years ago, it would work, but it's still a thought. And I know that's a big thing a lot of people think of is, oh, I'm going to have to pay my mortgage on this house, and then I'm going to have to pay out of pocket to do all these remodels.
Mm-hmm.
And there are vehicles to help people approach this as one project. So ask your lender, folks. Look on desireusa.org for incentives and rebates that can help you do your home the way you want it to help it perform well and look really awesome.
Yeah, I like the idea of the renovation loan, but that would have been great in 2019.
Right. I know when we were buying this home that y'all see, which was a spec home. So this one had never been lived in. It was like less than a year old when we bought it. And big part of the reason we bought this home is because the other home that we looked at, the existing home, needed some remodeling and some upgrades and some things fixed. And we needed to move pretty quick. So we didn't feel that we had the time to do that. Plus, I didn't live here yet. I was still in St. Louis. So I wasn't available to manage the project. Scott was going through his first round of medical treatments. So that wasn't, we were like, let's find something that's going to be ready to go. Now, ironically, we've had a couple of issues here, even in our brand new home. So you are not exempt, folks. It can happen anywhere at any time.
No, you're not exempt, but the problems seem to be small.
Most of the time. Yeah. Plus we have, you do have home warranties to back up to. Granted, they're fairly narrow sometimes, but at least there's something. So it's a start. So anywho.
Okay. So we talked about envelope.
Now we're coming in. What's next? Systems. Oh my gosh. So modern homes could not exist without systems, period. And we are so reliant on them way more than we ever really think. I realize how much we take that for granted. It's been really nice here this week. So we've had the windows open. So we haven't had to rely on our systems so much. But like I run the fan once or twice a day just to bring the fresh air in, to pull it in. So I'm still relying on the system a little bit, even when I think I'm not. So systems, heating and cooling, that's our biggies. And ventilation. Oh yeah, don't forget.
I was going to say, everybody forgets the V in HVAC.
Hidden V, HVAC. Nobody ever says, why is there a V in there? Why isn't it just hack? I never thought of it that way. Sorry, folks.
Heating and cooling.
Heating and cooling, hack.
Yes. The V.
HVAC sounds better.
As well, but the V is necessary in today's world because you have tight homes.
Absolutely.
You got to bring air in. They call it makeup air.
So if you're remodeling and digging into ceilings and walls, this is an excellent time to add in a small system that will bring in fresh air and exchange it. There's some really cool retrofit models for something called an ERV, an energy recovery ventilator, or an HRV, depending on which climate you're in. And your heating and cooling contractor can help you with this. Your heating, ventilation, and cooling contractor. But this is a great time to do this. If you're doing anything to replace or upgrade or change your heating, ventilation, and cooling system, add a fresh air intake on it. Because that brings fresh air into our homes so we don't have to rely on opening the windows. And some houses don't have operable windows, but that brings fresh air in and vents it out. So even no matter how hard we try to not bring pollutants in, our breathing exhales pollutants into the air and moisture. And even though moisture is not classically a pollutant, quote unquote, it is very damaging to a home.
Mold.
Right. So we want to get the moisture out. We want to keep our home at an ideal moisture level between 30 and 60% humidity. So having that system that ventilates as well as heats and cools. In some climates, you're going to want a dehumidifier or a humidifier, depending on what your climate is. But working with a contractor to really achieve something more than just, oh, I need air conditioning when it's 109 degrees. And this is probably, I think, one of the biggest opportunities in the home pro market right now is to change how we look at our heating and ventilation and cooling systems.
Well, and it's so important because if you are remodeling, unless you're just putting on a deck outside, you're going to touch this. If you're adding on a room.
So if you're adding a room, you have to add ductwork on or have a separate system.
If you're finishing a basement, you got to have ventilation in there. You have to have some kind of heating and cooling. Otherwise, you're going to suffer.
And don't let your contractor just cut new vents into your duct system. It doesn't work.
No.
You want to know why I know that, right?
Because you had that happen.
Before I knew anything. Yeah, it was way back before I knew anything. And it was awful. I mean, we didn't work with Home Pro then. We didn't know we should, which is why we have this podcast, which is why we're telling y'all, go ask the professionals. It is worth the extra money because you will have it done right.
And when it comes to heating, ventilation, and cooling, it's all about zoning the system. And these are mathematical calculations. It's not just a best guess. So your professional in this industry will sit there and say, for this, you are going to need this size of a unit, and you're going to have to do this. You're going to have this much ductwork, this many returns. They're going to lay it all out just based on the plans.
Okay, question for you. I'm going to ask you to speculate. And folks, do not hold us to our answers. This is our personal opinions, okay? Do you feel that it is more important to have a properly sized and installed heating, ventilation, and cooling system, or an efficient one, like a high energy efficiency rating, that is not as carefully sized for the home?
Okay, so this is great because I can use my parents as an example.
Sticky wicket, isn't it?
No, it is best to have it fully zoned, because if it's properly zoned.
But what about sized and loaded?
Yep, it's not zoned and sized correctly, it's going to work twice as hard to keep up. So,
and part of that is having a variable speed blower on it so it can ratchet down.
Right. So if you have a properly sized and zoned and loads right, and even if I have a less efficient unit, it's not going to work as hard.
It'll offset. Yeah. And this is a big conundrum in this whole industry, because I see so many contractors just throwing an efficient system at it and saying, we're energy efficient. We have an energy efficient heating and cooling system, and that's it. And there's a set of calculations called the manual J and S and D that are very technical, and they require a lot of precision. And there's light versions of those that are not as precise. And there's a lot of assumptions built in. And that's, I believe, what happens with a lot of these is they don't have the deeper calculations, so they don't get down to an exact fit for that home.
Well,
because even the directions your windows face change the loads.
My mom and dad's house, built in 2004, nice house, good builder. Upstairs in the secondary bedrooms, they've got portable air conditioning units. Why? Because it's not zoned and loaded and sized correctly. Plain and simple. But it's a high efficiency unit.
Correct. I have the same situation in my home, because my office where we are right now has the longest duct run upstairs. So even though I'm a north room, it can get warm in the summer because I just don't get as much air through here. Plus, I don't have a return in this room. And that's another thing, folks. If you are adding on rooms, add returns, not just supplies. Supplies are where the conditioned air comes out, heated or cooled. Returns are what sucks the stale air out of the room and sends it back up to be heated or cooled again, and hopefully mixed with fresh air and gone through your filter. So it improves the air as well. There's people adding on purifiers, filtration systems. You can get pretty high tech depending on the circumstances. For people with allergies or asthma, you can get pretty deep in it. For the average household, you do want some of that. It will help your indoor air quality so much. At any rate, this would be absolutely worth its own episode, because this whole idea of heating and cooling is big and easily overlooked.
Oh, I would agree with that.
So other systems. So hot water heater, what other systems? That's a pretty easy one.
It is. You could do tankless. You could do just a new high efficiency tank.
Or solar. You could do solar hot water too.
You could do solar. Yeah, you could. I know that there's a lot of, in urban settings, that's a very popular one. Rooftop solar hot water units.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Big.
Yeah. And you can put them next to PV panels to generate power. So we've seen some roofs that have big black panels for the water and then photovoltaics for power from the sun.
If you're going to do that, though, I would make sure that the framing,
because they're heavy,
and the engineering of the house can handle it.
They're heavy.
Nothing worse than something crashing through the roof.
And it's not just the framing, your foundation has to be able to handle it too. So that's a good time to have it tested if you're going to be putting. Photovoltaic cells themselves aren't near as heavy, but the water is. So that really adds to it.
Now, if you are doing an addition that is I got to pour, foundation, I've got to frame. I've got to put in roof trusses. Just tell the architect and they'll get it engineered so it can handle it. You don't have to worry.
Right. From the get-go. Yeah. That's a great idea. So systems, there's just lots of opportunities to upscale it. And you can always look for the Energy Star label to know that it has been gone through that third-party independent verification and certification. And there's a lot of products out there that go way above Energy Star, even when they have the Energy Star certification. So thinking about this it's more challenging than a lot of people think, but it's well worth it. The other side of this is maintain your stuff, you guys. Maintaining your heating and cooling is one of the ways you can really make it last. Just changing your filters really makes a difference. And do the best filter you can, because that'll take more stuff out of the air. So
See, other systems?
okay, so now we're going to move into kind of more the cosmetic stuff, the fixtures, the finishes, all the stuff that makes our home feel like a home.
Well, and this also bridges between the plumbing and the electrical systems of the house, because really it's not the wiring in the wall or the pipes in the wall. It's the fixtures.
Well, it might be if it's a 100-year-old house.
Yeah, but it's still the fixtures, and that really makes it. And if we're doing electric, LEDs. If we're doing plumbing, low flow.
All the way through, folks. There's no reason to not do these two things. They are easy. And anytime, oh my gosh, do I beat this drum all the time, Tony?
Mm-hmm. You do.
Anytime you're replace with a low flow fixture for plumbing, replace with LED light bulbs, fixtures for lighting. Matter of fact, there's no reason to just not go replace all of your bulbs with LEDs. Okay, if you have all CFLs, I'll let you go. But if you still have incandescents in your house, get them out, get them out, get them out. You're going to throw away the same amount of material, whether they work or not.
Okay, there is one caveat I'm going to bring up with LED lights and LED light bulbs that you do need to know about for a certain situation. If you are having an automated lighting control system, okay, we're talking like, the Control 4s, Crestrons, Lutron lighting systems. Once again, this might only be, 1 to 5%. This
is a smart home stuff, which we're going to do another episode on before the end of the year, folks.
Yes, we are. The light bulb matters. You just can't get any old LED light bulb.
True.
It's not about just the cheapest, because every time I have a client that calls us and says, hey, my lights are flickering on and off with our lighting control system.
Uh-oh.
The first question becomes, did you just happen to swap out light bulbs? Yeah, I did last week. Where'd you get them? Oh, I just found whatever online. It's like, yeah, you can't do that.
So mixing and matching on lighting, if you have smart home systems, is a no-no.
And it's not just a smart home system, it's the type of smart home system.
Right.
If you have the higher end ones, once again, we're talking maybe 5% of people, but it still matters.
Well, so our internet and cable provider, which here in Oklahoma City is Cox, who Scott used to work for. So we have their smart home system. So it's tied in through our controller that also controls security issues and fire and all that, fire and safety.
Yep.
And so we were able to get light bulbs that tie into that system. So we were able to make some of our lights in our home smart by adding their light bulbs that talk to their controller. And you're seeing this, there's, I think, a bigger variety than I ever guessed of different systems out there. And you can put Wi-Fi bulbs in and all this other stuff. So, but you need to stick it through with the system all the way. You start mixing and matching, things don't work.
Exactly. So if you are working with somebody to do a smart home, make sure you have that conversation of, hey, because a lot of the higher end ones, they don't mess with the light bulb. They control the switch on the wall.
Right, at the switch.
Obviously, it's easier if I can just do the light bulb itself and control through that.
And aren't a lot of the DIY ones in the bulbs?
Yes.
Or you can buy those little plugs that you put in your wall and it makes it a smart controller.
Exactly. Because a lot of times, and depending on the municipality, you really need an electrician and an electrical contractor to change out the light switches. That's why these are more high cost systems.
So this is for our listeners. This is Tony. This is your bailiwick. This is your thing. And we've done 2 podcasts over the years on smart homes, which you can go look in the podcast archive to listen to. And we like doing this every year because things have been changing so fast in the smart home industry. We want to bring you back up to date. So there's at least two, I think, in the archives that you can go listen to now. And then you can also watch for the episode coming out, I think in December of 2021. That'll be new and updated on what's going on in smart homes, because there's some really cool stuff.
Technology changes constantly.
It does.
We deal with it every day.
So let's also talk about some other things. So you're likely going to be putting down flooring.
Mhm.
If you're doing a kitchen or bathroom remodel, you might be changing out cabinets, countertops, paint, of course.
Yep. So, okay, paint,
All of those have better options.
low VOC or no VOC paint.
Easy peasy. Every major carrier has at least one line, and most of them have several.
Flooring, you could do sustainable flooring. You can do recycled flooring. You could do no VOC, low VOC flooring. There's a lot of different things you could do there.
So yeah, and actually I was reading an article the other day about how recycled material in household products that we're using to remodel and build homes is awesome, but make sure you know the source of that recycled material, because there's some bad actors putting bad stuff in there.
Yeah.
So just check your labels, check your sources.
It's unfortunate, but I mean, it's the world we live in right now.
I don't know. Why is there bad apples? Blah. Okay, so paint, low VOC, flooring, you got lots of options. Cabinetry. Let's talk about cabinetry.
Same thing. Well, one, right now, if you can find cabinetry,
Have it built. Solid wood.
don't even get me started there.
Why is solid wood a good choice?
Because you, at least if you're doing solid wood, one, you know it's organic. So if you do end up in 25 years, 30 years, redoing the cabinets and you're not recycling them somewhere and they end up in a landfill, at least they will break down organic.
Yeah, they'll compost or biodegrade.
We do know that. The other is because if they are real wood, there's a good chance that the manufacturer or wherever the material is coming from could come from a sustainable supply chain.
And then so
It could be FS.
number 3, if it's solid wood, it's not constructed, it's not engineered wood. And anytime you're using an engineered product, it has binders, resins, other components added to the wood to make it all stick together and work. And a lot of cabinets have been made of press wood in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we learned about press wood very quickly at my dad's house is that it dissolves when it's wet.
Yes.
So that's not good. So solid wood will not do that. It will dry out.
Plus, because it doesn't have any of the glues and all that, it doesn't off-gas unless you're dealing with the finish of the house, of the cabinets.
So choose your finish wisely, or choose a pre-finished one that was finished in a factory, so it's not off-gassing as much in your home.
We used to do that when I was at New Space. We would build everything and spray it and let it all sit and off-gas in the shop
Smart.
long before it went out to the job site.
Yeah, where you have the systems to handle it in the shop. And folks, watch out. You do not want formaldehyde in anything in your home, and it's still used in some building products.
Highly.
So just really look. There's some labels that will show you quickly and I don't remember the exact name of it but you do not want formaldehyde. So read the ingredients, make sure it's not hiding in there, because that's a potential carcinogen.
If you're doing any kind of laminate countertops, that's got it. If you're doing any kind of melamine for cabinetry, that most likely has it.
Although there are newer formulations that don't have it. You just have to really watch.
There are, but you've got to ask, because the default is it's included.
I took a couple of classes on a new site I found called Home Free, which is from I think it's a Healthy Building Network. And they talk a lot about different options for like flooring and different home components, and very, very tight on the health considerations. And they kind of have this rating system that's from red to green to give you an idea. And there's a lot of middle orangish, yellowish choices for people to make so you have some options, and good, better, best kind of a deal.
Yep, that's great.
So obviously this is going to be a long resource list in the show notes.
But you know what, like you just said, you have a lot of options. Best option for the budget.
And if you're overwhelmed with these options, folks, hire someone to help you. It will pay back in the long run big time. And even an interior designer can help you a lot. And if you let them know that you have concerns about the health and wellness aspect, they will help you find stuff. Even if it's not their thing, they can help you find stuff because it is readily available. The interior design associations, the architecture associations, all of these groups are educating their professionals on these healthier options. Now, not everybody's taking them up on them, but a lot of people are, and there's a lot of good education, and y'all know we can steer you to that too if you need more.
It really depends on the type of clientele the designers are used to dealing with. And, if it's, the old money, they might not care so much. But what we're seeing is younger designers that deal with younger customers and younger consumers and younger clients. This is what they want. So they're absolutely dealing with it.
So as we're wrapping up, we're going to put a bunch of resources in the show notes because I know we've covered a lot of ground today. Of course, some of this is covered in my book, Living Green Effortlessly, which you can get as well if you'd like, or your library might carry it. And then there's another book that I've really kind of gone back to, and it was published, I think, in 2008. And that is Green Building and Remodeling for Dummies. And most of the stuff in here is still really, really relevant. Like he talks about CFLs instead of LEDs, because in 2008, LEDs were pretty new to the market, and now they're commonplace. But it's a good book to help you assess and be a reference for different decisions you can make in different parts of your home. There's quite a few articles that I've found that I'll put in the show notes as well. And this may spin off into its own thing eventually. There's so much you can do, and we want to inspire you and help enable you to make your home everything that you want it to be.
Well, it's hard to talk about, sustainable and green remodeling in 30 minutes.
We didn't.
Yeah,
in 48.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
So thanks for sticking with us, folks.
It's a long conversation, but it's a necessary one.
It's a worthy conversation, and we appreciate y'all being on this journey with us. And if you have not had a chance yet, these video behind the scene recordings of the podcast are on my Love Your Everyday Green Home Facebook group, which you'll need to go ask to be invited or to join. But we'd love to have you there, and you get a lot of behind the scenes content, stuff that we do here, and books and all kinds of stuff. So go check it out. It's still free or complimentary, I should say. Coolio, what else? Famous last words.
Remodeling is a labor of love.
Anytime you're doing you can do it better. Remodel, redecorate, rehab, doesn't matter. You got a chance there. It's all opportunity.
I would agree with that.
Okay, folks. Well, with that, we're going to sign off. See you next time. In the meanwhile, go make it happen. Actions speak louder than words. That wraps this episode of the Everyday Green Home Podcast. Get the show notes with all the resources mentioned in this episode, and be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Ready to get started? Get more information, how-tos, and resources in my private Facebook group, Love Your Everyday Green Home. See you there. And remember that living a little better and a little greener is easier than you think.